Hi everyone, and welcome to the beginners or the introductory workshop to flat even count peyote stitch. So this is the little bracelet we're going to learn to make. It's a garland of little posies, flowers, pretty, really pretty for the spring and the summer. And we're going to do this from start to finish, although in this video demo I'm only going to demo a short bit, including adding on the clasp, because it is very repetitive. However, in the actual workshop we will do the full piece. And you would have been sent your pattern, and so I'm going to teach you how to read a pattern as well and tell you what all the different bits mean. So we're going to get going and make ourselves a little cuff. Start with a quick summary of everything that we need to make this cuff, and that is 6 different colours in your size 8 seed beads. Now you could be using Miyuki or Toho, it doesn't matter, as long as they are size 8s, and we're doing this in size 8s because they are so much bigger than the 11s and therefore easier to demonstrate when you're just learning. So the colours I've got here are Pearl Ceylon, Coral Lined Crystal, Duracoat Silver Lined Salmon, Duracoat Silver Lined Light Amethyst, Duracoat Silver Lined Peach, and Opaque Turquoise Green. I have also got another size 8 seed bead here. This is in silver. This is totally random and it's nothing to do with the colours I'm using. This is going to be my stopper bead. I've got a clasp and it's a sliding tube clasp. I've got a size 10 beading needle, some 6-pound fire line, and my thread zapper or some scissors to end off threads. And of course, you will need your pattern. So all the colours I've used are here in the bead legend, and they are labelled A, B, C, D, E, F, just as they are on my bead mat, and they're in the right order. This is my pattern, and that's a full 6-inch length. It doesn't actually measure 6 inches on the paper, but it's what the pattern will look like if you beaded 6 inches in size 8 seed beads. And here we have the word chart, and you'll notice that's made up of letters of the alphabet, which all relate to these letters down the side here, and that is why we've labelled them on our bead mat too. Start by adding a wingspan of thread onto our needle. We're going to have to add in thread during the process, but that's good as well because you get to learn how to add in or end off a thread and add in a new one. And we're going to start by threading on our stopper bead, move it down to the tail. You want to leave about 15 to 20 centimeters because we will use that to add on one end of our clasp. To make it a stopper bead, you're just going to take your needle back through the bead from the base to the top. It means that you can easily slide this down your thread, up or down, so you can easily slide it off. But once we start adding all these different colours on, nothing's going to slip off beyond the stopper bead. Then we need our pattern. And I always work with this alongside me with a ruler so that I can just move down through the rows as we do them so that I don't lose my space. You might want to tick them off, but it's a good idea to have it printed and next to you. And you'll notice on the word chart, so rows 1 and 2 are picked up at once. In fact, I'm not going to use a ruler because that is see-through. I'm going to use a piece of white paper. So, rows 1 and 2, you're actually going to pick up 6 A's, 1 B and 1 A, so 8 beads in total. And then as we move on, we're picking up less beads because those beads that you picked up in row 1 basically become row 1 and 2 as soon as you turn the corner. So we need 6 A's, 1 B and an A. So 6 A's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a B, and another A. And I'm going to let all of those drop down to my stopper bead because they're not going to go anywhere. So now we need to turn and bead another row. So if we bring back in row 3, it says 2B, 1A, 1E. So 2B, even though it says 2, I'm going to be picking them up one at a time. Now I'm holding my work with my stopper bead away from me because I like to bead away from me. So 2B was the first one. So I'm going to pick up 1B. And peyote is all about picking up one bead at a time. Other than this first row to get us going, we're picking up one bead. We're going to skip over a bead and pass through the next bead. So here we're going to skip over this A bead and we're going to pass through the B. And when you pull your thread through, you will find that that B that you've just added sits alongside the A, and it forms like a T-junction at the end of your work there. So that's the first one. I, according to the pattern, need 2 B's, so my next bead is also a B. I'm going to skip over the next A and pass through the following A. So I'm making this row of, we call them sticky outies. It's a professional term in the beading world, sort of. We call them sticky outies. And this will mean that when we come to do row 4, it's going to be a lot easier because we can see where the gaps are that are formed by the sticky outies. So after the 2 B's, I needed to pick up an A. I'm still on row 3. I'm going to, you can see where my thread is exiting. I'm going to skip over the next one and pass through the following one. And as long as you're pulling your thread through and keeping the tension quite tight, you will get those sticky outies appearing. So I've got 3 so far. This one has flipped over to the other side. I'm just going to bring it back. There we go. And then I need an E. And because I've got my beads all labeled, it makes it very easy to read the pattern. So now I'm going to skip over and I'm going to pass through the A that's at the top, ignoring the stopper bead. Okay, I'm going to just pop my needle down and I'm going to pull my threads so that everything is tight. So there I have got my first 3 rows. I'm now going to flip my work because, as I said to you in the beginning, I like to bead away from myself. So I'm now going to be beading up through these sticky outy beads that are on the right hand side here. And we need to look at our pattern and move to row 4, which says 2E, 1A, 1F. So, holding my work, I'm going to start with an E. I'm skipping over that last A and I'm passing through the sticky outie, through the E. Then I'm going to pick up another E. And I'm going to pass through the next sticky outie. You see how much easier it becomes once you've got a couple of rows because you can see those sticky outies. The next one is an A. Pass straight through the next sticky outie. And the last one to add in this row before we flip our work and start row 5 is an F. So I've picked up an F. And I've passed through that last sticky outie. And it's time to flip our work over again. So now my stopper bead is away from me. And we're working down through the pattern. We're on to row 5, which is 2B, 1A, 1F. And it really is as simple as that. People think it's complicated, but as soon as you know where to start and you have an idea of how to read a pattern, it becomes so much easier. So there are my 2 B's. I need an A, and an F. I'm going to do a couple more rows with you. So I'm back at the top. I'm going to flip over my work. Now that stopper bead is closest to me. And it's time to move on to row 6, which is 2E, 1A and 1B. So picking them up one at a time. There's my first E. Here's my second E. Just moving through those sticky outies, and then it's an A and a B. Picked up an A, pass through the next sticky outie. You also get to know the pattern. I know that I need to complete this little flower here with a little B bead. So your brain starts to work ahead of your pattern reading, and you see what is needed next. So we're back at the top. I'm going to flip over so that I can bead away from me again. And we're on to row 7. And row 7 says 3 A's and 1 E. But even though it's 3 A's, we're going to pick them all up individually. So one at a time. Pick up an A, pass through the sticky outie. That's 1. Pick up another A, and pass through the next sticky outie. That's 2. Pick up another A, our third one. Skip over a bead and pass through the next sticky outie. And the last one to pick up in this row was an E. Pick up a bead, skipping over the turquoise bead and passing through the next sticky outie, which brings me to the top. Flip your work over and you're ready to start row 8. So this is the last row I'm going to do here. Row 8 is 3 A's and 1 C. So just as before, one at a time. 1, 2. You don't want to get your thread caught around the little hook of beads at the bottom. 3. And my final one for row 8 was a C, so we're going for this lovely red or salmon. Flip my work and I'm ready to start row 9. So I'm going to leave you to it now and I'll come back to you when I get down towards the bottom. When you get down to row 26 and you've beaded 3A and 1B, you'll see the next line says repeat from row 3. So that's when you come back up to the top and you start from row 3 again with 2B, A and E. And so you continue through and you keep going back up to 3 until you've got a length long enough for your wrist or for whoever you are making the bracelet for. So I've only done a couple more rows and I'm going to show you how to end off a thread now. We start a thread in exactly the same way. So you want to be one either at the top or exiting at the base. I'm exiting at the top and I'm now just going to work backwards through the bead. I'm going to be making a little maze, making sure I pass through the beads. So I came down through the red. I'm going to pass down through the turquoise. Then I'm going to go up through the red alongside it. If you keep changing direction from down and up and to either side, you're really tangling that thread up in its own little knots without actually tying a knot. And when you're working with much smaller beads, it's hard to hide a big knot inside a bead. So this is a far better way of ending off or starting a new thread. Then I'm going to come down through another red, down through a white, and I'm going to come up through the white on the right, and I'm going to go back up through a red, and I'm coming back up to the top because I don't want to forget which side I ended on. If I was to bring my thread down to the bottom and I then went and had some lunch, I might think that was where I was starting again. But if I end my thread at the top, when I come to add in a new thread, I know that I need to add in my thread and be exiting this bead at the top to continue with my peyote stitch. So that's how you end off a thread, and as soon as you've added in your new thread you can zap that off, and obviously in the workshop we will be adding in new thread together. The next job is to add in a clasp, and we're going to add in a clasp to this tail end. You need to just slide that stopper bead off the end and then you're ready to go. Popped my needle onto my tail thread. This is the thread that I'm going to get rid of. Let me just pop it under a set of pliers and it won't get in the way. And if you line your clasp up alongside your beadwork before you even start, you can see where your connection points are going to be. The loops line up with these 3 sticky outy beads here. So I'm keeping the clasp as one. I'm not separating it, I'm keeping it together. I want to work through my beads until I'm exiting this first sticky outy here. So I'm going to come through this one and I'm going to come down through the first sticky outy. Just like that, just as if you were ending off a thread. And I'm going to use the A beads to add in my clasp. I'm going to pick up one A. I'm going to pass through the corresponding loop of my clasp, so the loop at the bottom. I'm going to pick up another A. And I'm going to pass back through the sticky outy, but from the opposite side. So the thread was coming out the base of the bead and I'm coming through from the top. And then what I need to do is I need to work through my beads until I'm exiting the next sticky outy bead. And I haven't left myself enough thread here, so I'm fiddling around with scraps. So I'm going to pass up, and I'm coming through quite a few on the diagonal there, but I'm exiting the next sticky outy, which is my next connection point. So if I pop that down on the mat, you can see where we're going to now. And I'm going to do it exactly the same way. I'm going to pick up one A and I'm going to pass through the second connection loop on my clasp. So I've got an A at the back. I need one more A at the front. And then I'm going to come through this sticky outy from the opposite end. This time my thread was exiting the top, so I'm coming back through it from the base. And there I've got my first 2 points connected. I then need to weave through my beads till I get to the next sticky outy to join the final loop in exactly the same way. So there you have an ending off thread, joining a clasp and a bit of peyote and learning how to do the instruction, and you'll learn so much more during the workshop too.